Deep in the Earth's core, a killer is unleashed. It will spew more lava than all the volcanoes in recorded history combined. The relentless assault may wipe out life entirely. Our ancestors, the earliest amphibians, will struggle to make evolution's most dramatic leap yet. Throughout Earth's history, cataclysmic events have caused numerous mass extinctions. But each time total annihilation seems inevitable, nature snaps back with remarkable resiliency. These mass extinctions are a brutal part of our past, and could be a part of our future. Who will live and who will die? The answers may surprise you. Now, experience one of the worst catastrophes our planet has ever suffered. Hell on Earth, on Animal Armageddon. Our life is made by the death of others. Leonardo da Vinci, 16th century AD. Our planet, 377 million years ago. The beginning of the so-called late Devonian period. Millions of years before humans or even dinosaurs. Animals are thriving in this primeval world. At least for now. Life on Earth is about to be taken hostage in the planet's second great extinction. The first may have been caused by a gamma-ray burst. Scientists believe this killer attacked from far, far beneath our feet. It's called a superplume, an ocean of magma surging towards the Earth's crust. It contains 2 million cubic miles of searing liquid rock, enough to throw the entire planet into a death spiral.
Superplumes are portions of the very deep, hot Earth, which, for reasons that we don't know, break off from the other magmatic material deep under the Earth and decide to make a sojourn, a journey up to the surface. Think of this over 20 million years. This is an old Earth lava lamp, and one of these blobs just makes it to the surface, breaks out, and then literally all hell breaks loose.
As the plume rises, it warps and melts the Earth's crust from below. It is only a matter of time before Armageddon is unleashed. Earth has just 24 hours left. During this time, the planet is a warm, wet world of tropical islands in an endless ocean. South America, Africa and Antarctica form one supercontinent over the South Pole. The other continents are splintered into a collection of islands near the equator. Plants cover the land for the first time in history.
It would have looked much different than modern forests today. Walking through the Devonian forests, it probably would have been pretty warm, humid, muggy conditions. You would see a lot of large seed fern trees that were present. You wouldn't see any trees that had flowers. So the flowering plants, flowering trees and bushes were not around in the Devonian.
Walk through these forests, and the only creatures you'd find would be tiny insects. It's below, in the vast sunlit seas, that animal life flourishes.
The extent of coral reefs back in the Devonian was about on the order of 1 million square kilometers, compared with today, which is about 10 times less.
These bustling cities are packed with inhabitants. You'd see coral and sponges, industrious trilobites, the insects of the sea, nautiloid cephalopods, the ancestors of today's squid and octopus.
The reefs were enormous in size, rich, diverse, colorful. We see hundreds of types of corals, other creatures like corals, sponges, stalked echinoderms called sea lilies or crinoids. It would have been a really cornucopia of movement and color and shape.
One of the first things you would have noticed was the abundance of fishes swimming around. And the Devonian is known as the age of the fishes for this region.
Today, fish are one of the most primitive life forms on Earth. In this time, they are the most advanced. They come in astonishing varieties, from a few inches long to the size of a city bus. But one group stands out, the placoderms.
The term placoderm means plate skin. So placo means plate, derm, just like our dermis, refers to skin. So they have a series of these bony plates that cover their head, on through back, over their shoulder.
The largest creature in the sea and the largest animal ever up to this time is the Dunkleosteus.
The biggest creature I've ever been in the water with is a killer whale, and yet a killer whale would have been dwarfed by this enormous Dunkleosteus.
This 33-foot-long, 20,000-ton sea monster is as fierce as it looks. Bony plates protect its head like a suit of armor. Its toothless, razor-sharp jaw opens in a 50th of a second, sucks prey in, then clamps down with a bite nearly as strong as T-Rex.
You definitely don't want to end up inside the jaws of a Dunkleosteus. If you're bitten by a shark, you effectively have a series of forks stabbed into you, or maybe at some point a little bit of scissor-like action with the serrated teeth. But a Dunkleosteus with its shearing jaws probably would have cut you in half.
After gulping down its prey, it regurgitates the undigestible parts. Dunkleosteus is the undisputed king of this underwater jungle. But even he is not safe from the hell to come. In what is now Siberia, the superplume is about to break through the seafloor. Life on Earth will be changed forever. The sea rumbles. Roaring jets of superheated gas rage from below.
All around the eruptive areas, we have plumes of hot water at high velocity. There's so much heat and there's so much water in the rock itself that this water boils. In fact, it goes hotter than boiling water.
For millions of animals, death is inescapable. Even the mighty Dunkleosteus is helpless. Underwater rock slides destroy reefs in a matter of seconds. Magma spews from deep fissures. The eruption strikes an area as large as the island of Manhattan with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs.
Comparing a superplume to something more familiar, maybe like Mount St. Helens, it was a much, much larger scale event than any single catastrophic eruption that we've seen in historic times.
Fallen armies of fish rot in the tropical heat. They are the first casualties in what will be an epic battle for survival. A war waged between the superplume and Earth itself, with animal life caught in the crossfire. Armageddon has arrived. Earth will never be the same. Their sighs, lamentations, and loud wailings responded through the starless air. Dante's Inferno, 1308. At Ground Zero, near what is now Siberia, a thriving animal kingdom has been reduced to rubble. And this is just the beginning. The enemy is expanding its hold into a ring of fire thousands of miles in diameter.
Not only did we have some volcanic eruptions with lava flows, we also had greater rates of plate tectonic activity. So a lot more seafloor spreading was going on, formation of new oceanic crust with submarine volcanism occurring.
But the Earth's crust isn't the only casualty. The superplume is also poisoning the oceans.
Once the hot lava interacts with seawater, it can generate a lot of potentially toxic compounds in the seawater. You would have had a lot of metals, for instance, like silver, gold, chromium, iron, magnesium, and so on.
The contamination spreads like radiation after an atomic blast. New life is the most vulnerable. In southern Italy, it is the spawning season for Eusthenopteron. Like modern-day salmon, thousands journey here every year to breed. These agile predators are nearly as big as a man and have a nasty bite. They're called lobe-finned fish because of their stubby fins, precursors to actual limbs.
The lobe-finned fishes of the time during the Devonian had limbs much more like our limbs in terms of being robust.
During spawning season, all the Eusthenopterons from miles around gather. They have no clue disaster has struck. The only thing on their minds is finding an attractive mate. Females release eggs, and males fertilize them. But in these toxic seas, larvae quickly die. Slowly, this will chip away at their population until finally they are gone for good. It is now 8,000 years since the war began, the blink of an eye in the timescale of a mass extinction. The oceans are locked in a life and death struggle, but now death spreads to the atmosphere. The enemy below releases billions of tons of toxic gas, mostly carbon dioxide. Slowly but surely, the air grows thick with greenhouse gases. Temperatures spike, ocean currents grind to a halt. The oceans are an astonishing 90 degrees Fahrenheit at the equator, a dramatic increase of 20 degrees. The sea is dying.
So we're talking hot temperatures here that would have been far beyond the envelope of survivability for these reefs, because these reefs had developed in water temperatures that were, much, much cooler.
It seems Mother Earth may be losing the war. And if this war is lost, an incredible breakthrough may never happen. Our ancestors transition from water to land. These creatures, including a remarkable fish called Tiktaalik, are starting to sense the change in their world. In the riverbeds of what is now Greenland, they know as temperatures rise, their homes are evaporating. But they have a defense. A revolutionary adaptation that may help them survive the apocalypse. Sensing the danger, this family sets out on a long journey. But their exodus takes them where no aquatic animal has ever gone, out of the water. Primitive air-breathing lungs kick in. Simple wrist bones propel them off the ground. This amazing creature is the first vertebrate to walk on land. This is just the advantage they need to survive an ordeal that will last for thousands of years.
Tiktaalik is a perfect link between the truly aquatic fish and the earliest amphibians on land. Here we're seeing a fish that is moving towards this tetrapod or four-legged condition. From its forelegs, we can see for the very first time how the bones are going to work themselves into the humerus, the radius of the forearms. So Tiktaalik is this great, great discovery in the history of paleontology for many reasons.
Tiktaalik has many never-before-seen traits, key for living on land. A flattened head with eyes on top, a movable neck, and strong but flexible appendages.
One of the cool things about Tiktaalik is that it also has a series of bony bars in this throat region that in modern fishes support a series of gill filaments for gill-based respiration. So quite literally like modern lungfish, as well as sturgeon and salmon and a variety of other living forms, Tiktaalik was quite literally a double breather. It could breathe using both gills as well as lungs.
But in the grip of mass extinction, Tiktaalik's survival isn't a sure thing. Runaway global warming will force them to wander, always searching for a stable home to feed, reproduce, and raise their young.
It certainly would have been a great advantage for any Devonian fish to be able to move from one nasty pond to perhaps a bigger, less nasty pond. True insects were on the land, lots of scorpions, centipedes, millipedes, lots of bugs. And if you're a fish and you're trying to make it from one pond to another and it's just on the way, oh my gosh, fish food. And you munch up a couple of these guys, all to the better. So getting out would have been protection. Getting out would have been getting you to maybe a new place to reproduce. But getting out would have given you a new food source.
Tiktaalik may have found some traction in this changing world. but it's still just one breath away from extinction. One false move, and the whole species will be gone. And our own existence would disappear with it. Other freshwater inhabitants are not so well adapted, including Bothriolipis, one of the most abundant fish in the world.
The Bothriolipis is my best vision of what a fish in a suit of armor would look like, or a fish that thinks it's a lobster would look like. They would not have won any speed derby of any sort. On the other hand, it would have been armored to the point that it would have been very difficult to kill it.
But this well-protected creature is vulnerable to the changing environment. Each summer, colossal monsoons flood the rivers and streams where they make their home. Then the water quickly evaporates in the stifling heat. This relentless cycle has devastated their habitat. Bothriolipis and hundreds of other freshwater species are stranded in the mud, left to die in the scorching sun. "100,000 years after the superplume first assailed the Earth's crust, the merciless attack marches forward. Lava pours into the ocean. Toxic chemicals smother the sea bottom. The blazing sun scorches the globe. Earth's life force is fading fast. For the species that once flourished here, there's only one choice: adapt or die. How do we know so much about Tiktaalik? The very first Tiktaalik fossil was unearthed in Ellesmere Island, Canada, in 2004. Scientists wondered if this unusual fish ever walked on land. This wasn't easy to determine. The fossil Tiktaalik's skeleton was only partially preserved, with no soft tissue-like ligaments or muscles left behind. This presents a very difficult problem for scientists to unravel. How do scientists know Tiktaalik, the missing link between fish and amphibians, actually walked on land? The answer is hidden in the animal's bones. Tiktaalik's wrist bone attached to the elbow in a unique way, enabling this fish to do a push-up.
Because there are flexion points, say the wrist versus the elbow regions, this really represents one of the first elbow and wrist-like regions in an animal in history.
Though there is still plenty of debate, many scientists believe this feature helped Tiktaalik lift off the ground and amble around. Tiktaalik's descendants built on this amazing feature, and within 15 million years they lived on land permanently. "250,000 years after our planet was first attacked from within, death is winning the war against life. The superplume that first exploded near Siberia still spawns hellish volcanic eruptions. And just when it seems it can't get any worse, a surprising new killer joins the fray: plant life.
They had all the elements that they needed. An open landscape to occupy. They had water. They had plenty of carbon dioxide and sunlight.
Vegetation grows unchecked. Thousands of years of fallen leaves decay on the forest floor, the first layer of topsoil in Earth's history.
Prior to this, soils on Earth would have been very, very thin veneers covering bedrock. But once we had the development of deeply rooted plants and trees, they would have accelerated the formation of very, very deep and rich soil.
But what nurtures plants only brings death to the ocean. When it rains, soil washes out to sea. Algae absorbs the nutrients and grows out of control, sucking oxygen out of the water and suffocating marine life. Earth's coastlines are overrun. The sea turns green and sickly. Direct evidence of these horrible conditions is preserved in rock beds from the Devonian period.
In looking at Devonian oceans, one of the things that's very striking about sedimentary rocks deposited in these ocean basins is the abundance of very dark-colored sediments, black shales, dark-colored limestones. And these give evidence of very low oxygen conditions that were prevalent in many of the ocean basins at this time.
Just north of the equator, in what is now Morocco, the bottom waters have become a lonely graveyard. Bacterial slime is all that's left of this reef. For the few survivors, starvation is rampant. Once there were hundreds of Dunkleosteus here. Now, only a handful are left. As hunger deepens, their insatiable appetites drive them to cannibalism. It's a terrible spectacle. Two starving sea beasts, each as big as a school bus, desperately trying to kill one another. A chunk out of one of these monsters is a good meal, but it can't stave off the inevitable. The king of the Devonian seas, the T-Rex of its time, is doomed. It is now 300,000 years into the extinction, and Earth inches closer to becoming a dead planet. The polluted oceans have claimed millions of species. The flame of a once flourishing animal kingdom is now flickering towards total annihilation. But a few resilient creatures are finding amazing ways to survive. In what is now Australia, an animal called Matapices weathers the storm. Although these fish are small enough to hold in your hand, they can crush a clamshell with their powerful tooth plates. But it's not their eating habits that make them so special. Matapices, which means mother fish, is the first animal known to give birth to live young. In 2005, a fossil Matapices was unearthed in Australia with the skeleton of another tiny fish in its abdomen. Scientists realized this had to be its offspring.
There are fossilized embryos of babies inside of this specimen that are not concentrated down low where, say, the stomach would have otherwise been, but are actually much, much more anterior or toward the front of the animal.
It's a critical adaptation. By protecting young inside their bodies, female Matapices help their children survive into adulthood. Maternal instinct born out of Armageddon. But will it be enough? "750,000 years after the superplume went on the offensive, its fury has ravaged the planet. But now it has a new tactic. To this point, eruptions had been confined to the sea. Now, it will attack by land. It is now 1.2 million years since the first eruption. If you were standing in what is now Western China, you'd hear the ground rumble. The air turns foul and sulphurous. Then, chaos. Geysers of liquid fire soar hundreds of feet into the air, a terrifying show of force. Ash fills the sky in a suffocating death cloud. The planet is turning itself inside out. This is hell on Earth.
The best way to describe the explosive power of a super eruption is to compare it to something in more recent times, such as a Mount St. Helens eruption. Any supervolcano eruption would be hundreds, if not thousands of times bigger than a Mount St. Helens eruption.
If you're living anywhere in the volcano's reach, even underwater, you're in big trouble. Our own ancestors, the Tiktaaliks, scurry for cover. Some even try to find safety on land, but there's no salvation here.
Ash columns can be perhaps 40, 50 kilometers high, penetrating well into the stratosphere. Associated with these ash columns are pyroclastic flows, fluidized mass of material. They're 700 to 800 degrees Celsius at speeds of 100 or 200 miles per hour. This, of course, is going to annihilate anything in the immediate vicinity.
Hours after the initial eruption, lava continues to spew from great fissures in the earth. The eruption will go on for weeks, throwing enough debris into the air to fill the Grand Canyon. Smoldering chunks of rock ignite massive wildfires, adding to the pool that's forming overhead.
The combination of the volcanic gases and the ash would have made the sky very colored, vivid oranges and reds, along with this dark veil of ash that would diminish the sunlight altogether.
You'd feel the effects no matter where you stood on the planet. The ash rains down worldwide. There's no escaping the surreal new sky.
In an order of weeks to months, most of the ash will fall out of the atmosphere. However, gases that penetrate into the Earth's stratosphere can stay there for years.
For hundreds of thousands of years, Earth has been a global greenhouse, trapping solar energy and heating the surface. But now, the volcanic gases deflect the sun's rays. Hell is about to freeze over. $1.2 million years after a superplume is believed to have struck Earth, a dark cloud of ash plunges the world into a brutal volcanic winter. For life on Earth, this is the final stand. The ocean temperature at the surface plunges from over 90 degrees Fahrenheit to just around 70. Any fish eggs basking in the shallows are wiped out immediately. Plankton, the microscopic surface dwellers that form the base of the marine food chain, are decimated. Life on Earth has already been hammered by hundreds of thousands of years of pollution and hothouse conditions. Now this.
If we had very, very intense eruptions, it would have had the potential to drive a volcanic or a nuclear winter scenario. So we had both simultaneously. We had global warming punctuated potentially by short-term episodes of fairly severe global cooling.
On the bottom of a shallow river in Greenland, our ancestors, the Tiktaaliks, eke out a living. Their ability to migrate over land has given them a crucial advantage. But there's a new enemy in this war for survival. The first snowfall in hundreds of thousands of years.
But all of a sudden now we get the cold. We have a tropical world that starts getting colder and colder and colder. And it's that really 1-2 punch that makes up this Devonian mass extinction. We should call it the Devonian mass extinctions.
For the suffering Tiktaaliks, the icy waterways become a tomb. Their population slowly dwindles until, in the end, there's but one left. And then this pivotal species is gone forever.
Tiktaalik is justly regarded as one of the great vertebrate pioneers in the sense that here's an animal which really paves the way. It is us way back in time. But Tiktaalik doesn't survive very long in this type of world. The reason Tiktaalik is justly lauded, it gives rise to other species which do better. Tiktaalik is but a stepping stone, a short-lived stepping stone.
It is now 1.5 million years after the extinction began. The volcanic winter lifts, and finally, the superplume burns out. But the world will never be the same. At least 70% of all species have perished. Where once the oceans were a kaleidoscope of life and energy, now they are empty and grey. It is easy for us to think mass extinction only affects large animals, but in reality, those that suffer the most are usually small. In this catastrophe, the organisms that form coral reefs are slaughtered. They used to be the foundation for bustling cities. Now they are simply gone.
You go from a situation where at its maximum extent, reefs were exposed over the course of about 5 million square kilometers. And those are reduced down to about 1,000 square kilometers at its maximum extent. So it's a huge depletion of reef communities.
Along with the reefs, jawless fish, the most primitive of all, are extinct. Armored fish like Dunkleosteus and Metapisces will soon disappear. For millions of years, the extinction's beleaguered survivors struggle just to get by in this inhospitable world. Earth is perilously close to becoming a lifeless planet. Nature does nothing uselessly. Aristotle, 4th century BC. The mass extinction has left Mother Earth weak ravaged and nearly lifeless. Were we to find ourselves in this alien world, we would barely detect any trace of life. Now begins a long and difficult recovery. For millions of years, it's as though evolution has stalled. Animal life strains to bounce back. Microscopic opportunists like bacteria and algae fill the void, reclaiming the sea floor once dominated by coral reefs.
It's very much like the Precambrian, the time before animals. Animals are few in number. The microbes are in a death grip battle with animals for wresting the world back, as they had it for 3 billion years prior to animals. It's very much in the balance as to whether planet Earth was going to go back to a bacterial world or continue as an animal world.
But all is not lost. Trees, which once contributed to the mass extinction, now help bring the planet back to life. Each year, they add more and more oxygen to the atmosphere. Temperatures stabilize. The seasons return. And once again, life diversifies. The swamps of this time are the incubators for life's next great leap, one we humans have a personal stake in. It is now 10 million years after the superplume strike. In a shallow swamp in what is now Pennsylvania, a school of Bothrialepis scavenge for food. This strange fish is one of the lucky few to survive. They lived in many different environments all over the world, improving their odds of survival. But little do they know, an agile predator has them in his sights. It almost looks like Tiktaalik, but Tiktaalik is long extinct. In fact, this is one of Tiktaalik's descendants, a critical link to the evolution of humankind, the 5-foot-long Ichthyostega.
Ichthyostega is very interesting in the sense that this animal represents one of the first documented cases in the fossil record where we have a vertebrate with recognizable digits in its limbs. The hand of Ichthyostega is not known, but the hind limbs are very well known. And interestingly, there's not 5 digits, but there are 7.
Its ancestor Tiktaalik used both gills and lungs for respiration. Ichthyostega only uses lungs. A sturdier ribcage supports his body when out of water, relieving pressure on the lungs. That means Ichthyostega can draw much deeper breaths than Tiktaalik. Like a modern-day whale or dolphin, it gulps air at the surface before launching its attack.
If you think about it, in a very tangled swamp where you have a lot of vegetation material down and sticks, legs are really useful. You can pull yourself through branches and dead leaves and material. They're very useful for underwater appendages.
But Ichthyostega is as comfortable out of water as he is in it.
But Ichthyostega certainly could get out. Whether it could lift itself off its belly, there's a big debate about this. How strong were the shoulder girdles? How strong were the forelegs? But it is the ancestor that does give rise to animals that could hold themselves up, these first true amphibians.
From the ashes of one of Earth's most horrific disasters, life has made an extraordinary comeback and reached a new evolutionary milestone. The Earth's core continues to burn. At any moment, another superbloom could assault our world. And if it does, Armageddon will return.